Well guys, celebrity hypocrisy is back at its finest yet again, this time from Biden lovey Alyssa Milano, who you might remember has been screaming to defund the police along with the rest of the losers like her in recent months. Well, it turns out she actually needed to call them herself because there was someone in her garden that looked to be armed. Naturally, this got everyone calling her out, and now she's actually trying to claim that it was her neighbour who called them first and her husband just picked up the phone to see where they was. Still, to me, saying you are desperate for the police's help when you've called to defund them. But obviously, her piss poor defence here is because she needs to pander to her activist follower base that make her the stooge of Biden. I mean, you only need to take a look at her Twitter bio, which is pure cringe, like most of what she does. And as you all know, we might see more of this over the next month or so, with lefty lovies and Democrat politicians changing their positions when these rioting losers come through their neighbourhood. And you know what? I cannot wait for everyone to call out their hypocrisy, much like the Daily Mail has done here. Exclusive: defund the police activist Alyssa Milano calls 911, sparking massive police presence in her quiet Californian neighbourhood, claiming an armed gunman was on her property, but it was really a teen shooting at squirrels with an air gun. Now, at the time of seeing this, I actually called out the stupidity of whoever wrote this, because the last time I checked, being a gunman usually meant that you was armed. I am struggling to see how you could be a gunman without it. Actress and defund the police activist Alyssa Milano was quick to call the cops when she believed an armed gunman was on her Bell Canyon property on Sunday morning. The call ignited a response that included 7 Ventura County Sheriff's vehicles, 1 K9 unit, a police helicopter, and 1 Los Angeles Fire Department team that sat down the street on standby. DailyMail.com has obtained exclusive photos showing the first responders coming to the aid of the 47-year-old at her 5-bed, 6-bath, 8,000 square foot, £2.5 million home in the upscale, gated community that sits just 20 minutes north of Los Angeles. Because as you all know, she is definitely one of the people. She can obviously relate to her activist base because once again, like her, they are nothing like real people. They don't even understand how real people live. But as we all suspected, it is these tosspots that live in gated communities that are sitting there screaming about defunding the police, not the ones who actually live in the estates or projects as they're called in America, where you might actually need the police's help. I expect she actually has armed security guards, and if she doesn't, she probably soon will do. A neighbour tells DailyMail.com, we first noticed the helicopter circling overhead very low and we knew something was going on. It's usually such a quiet community. Then we saw all the police cars parked in front of Alyssa's home. They had their guns at the ready and seemed very serious. Yeah, because obviously these rich lefty lovies have all called them up screaming and shouting because they think they're about to get wasted, when in actual fact, as you will find out in a minute, and it said in the article headline, it was just a teenager shooting squirrels. While a squirrel is a rodent, it wasn't the same type of rodent that Alyssa Milano and her kind of ilk are. So she was always safe, he was never hunting for her, and let's be honest, no one's going to bother, she's essentially irrelevant. Just a screaming mouthpiece on Twitter for the Biden campaign. Alyssa and her husband, Day 39, they said, had dialed 911 when they heard what they believed to be gunshots on their 1.39 acre property. Now, I do have to point out how stupid Alyssa Milano and her lefty lovies are to think that an air gun is actually a real gun and sounds anything like it. Because obviously they don't. The sound of a real gun is going to make a hell of a lot more noise than a piss poor air rifle. They allegedly told the emergency hotline the sound scared their dogs and made them feel like the gunman was nearby. A description was given of the suspect to officers, who was male, 40 years old, with a long rifle, which, as you already know, it turns out was completely wrong. And I would like to know how they managed to see who it was, because as you can see above there, they said that they allegedly told the emergency hotline the sound scared their dogs and made them feel like the gunman was nearby. Not once did they actually say that they had seen him. It continues, Alyssa Milano's gate sat open with law enforcement guarding the entire perimeter of the street, as these Daily Mail photos show. The search by air and street level lasted over 3 hours and ended abruptly at 12:20 PM. It turned out it was a neighbourhood team with an air gun shooting at squirrels, a resident told the DailyMail.com. So much for the 40-year-old man walking around with a long rifle hunting people down, as Alyssa Milano, or whoever it was who made that bullshit statement up there, tried to claim. The male teenager witnessed the emergency response and later realised he was the cause and turned himself in, though obviously he had actually done nothing wrong. The officers then had an impromptu meeting with some of the residents in the Bell Canyon Community Centre, confirming what they dubbed Squirrel Gate. So obviously it was a bunch of nothing, but Alyssa Milano completely shit herself, rung the old build, despite, as we know, her running around screaming to defund the police. As you can see here, in July, the left-leaning activist Alyssa tweeted out to her 3.7 million followers a link urging them to sign the People's Budget LA that demands a 90% reduction in in police funding, which would have meant one police car might have turned up about 10 hours after she called them, showing just how stupid this dopey lefty spunk trumpet really is. She tweeted, "What is the Los Angeles Police Protective League? It is a narrow special interest group that lobbies our politicians to protect the LAPD budget, pensions, plus officers. But elected officials need to protect people, not police. Sign the hashtag People's Budget LA petition." Then in August, she tweeted simply, "Defund the police," as we all know. And can see here, this is the problem. We've militarised the police to protect and serve. Please, how many hungry children would the cost of this tank feed? How many community programs would this serve? How many classroom supplies or childcare programs, mental health services, hashtag defund the police? When in actual fact it should be hashtag defund Alyssa Milano and these lefty tosspots who run around thinking they can tell us what to do and how to live our lives, when none of the shit they suggest would actually affect theirs. It continues, this tweet appears to be at direct odds with her actions on Sunday the 20th of September. One neighbour says she can tweet those things because at the end of the day she lives behind gates in a gated community. She knows the police will come to save her, but what about all those people who don't have that luxury and live in unsafe neighbourhoods? She obviously doesn't care. And I have got to say, well done to that neighbour for calling out her bullshit. Mind you, I expect most people around there probably think she's a bit of a stuck-up cunt. They continue, she uses her platform in hypocritical ways. Why not send your husband into the yard to find out what is actually going on before you call the police? I would guesstimate the response today from law enforcement cost the taxpayer thousands of dollars. I would say thousands at least, maybe try tens of thousands. That helicopter's fuel for 3 hours is not going to be cheap. But as for her comment about sending her husband into the yard, that's never going to happen. Take a look at the guy, he's a bit of a fucking soy boy. So I'm sure in what is a surprise to no one, the hypocrisy of Alyssa Milano has been completely called out. Social media was alight with this all last night and it's still going on today. But I'm sorry to say, the best thing about it all is when the neighbour calls her out for her utter hypocrisy and complete and utter bullshit. Well done to the neighbours round there. Maybe the entirety of California is not lost to the woke lefty losers.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.